I swear, the sound was like a blender chewing up a metal fork. It screeched through the early morning stillness, loud enough to make birds scatter from the trees. I peeked through my window, just in time to see sparks flying out from under the rear tire of a shiny white SUV Karen's SUV. She was screaming. Not the usual HOA Karen scream about fence heights or lawn lengths. No, this was full-on horror movie, shrieking as her back tire got eaten, yes. Eaten by the shredders I had installed right under my driveway. She jumped out of the car, waving her arms like she was swatting invisible bees. Her mouth flapped open in shock, and her jaw dropped further when she spotted the blinking red light on the corner of my RoofMe camera was rolling. I got everything, but let me rewind for a second. This didn't start with metal crunching and fire. It started with a promise I made to myself. The next time Karen blocks my driveway, it will be the last. 3 weeks earlier, I moved into Windy Oaks for peace and quiet. That dream lasted exactly 4 days. That's when I met her, Linda Charleston. But around here, everyone just called her Karen. She was the self-appointed queen of the HOA, even though she was just the secretary. Somehow, she still ran everything like a tiny dictatorship with trash cans and parking fines. The first time she blocked my driveway, I figured it was an accident. Her friends were having a garden party 2 houses down, and there was a crowd. I gave her the benefit of the doubt. The second time, I was already backing out to get to work when I found her sedan parked sideways across my exit. I knocked on her door. Polite, patient. She acted like I'd just spit on her roses. "You don't own the street, young man," she said, smiling sweetly. "Maybe try leaving a little earlier next time." I had to call an Uber. By the 5th time, I was done being polite. She kept parking there whenever it suited her, even though there were clear no parking signs, and my painted driveway border made it extremely clear where my property ended and hers didn't begin. When I confronted her again, she said, "Well, if you joined the HOA board, maybe you'd have a say." So I joined. Not out of interest. Not out of community spirit. Out of spite. The HOA meeting from hell. The first board meeting I attended was held in the local rec center. It looked more like a courtroom drama than a neighborhood get-together. Karen was there, of course, sitting dead center at the head of the table like some suburban Judge Judy. The agenda included a 15-minute discussion about my lackluster shrub trimming habits. I had one bushone that leaned a bit too far into the sidewalk. "I make exceptions for people who respect the rules," she said, smiling with poison in her teeth. That was when I realized this wasn't just about a parking space. It was war. The first twist. I tried everything. Motion-activated sprinklers, traffic cones, even a giant inflatable T-Rex I bought off Amazon with the sign, "Warning, Dinosaur Crossing." She parked there anyway. I called the local tow company. They shrugged. "Sorry, sir, if there's no official sign on your private driveway entrance, we can't touch it. HOA rules." Of course, HOA rules that she wrote. She even told the whole neighborhood I was being aggressive and dangerous because I asked her to stop parking in front of my own house. I started getting side eyes from other neighbors. One even whispered to me, "You really should just let her park there. It's not worth the drama." I couldn't believe it. Somehow, she had spun the story so far around that I was the villain. So I stopped fighting her by her rules. I started building my own. Enter The shredder plan. Now, don't get me wrong. I didn't install actual military-grade tire shredders. I'm not that crazy. But I did engineer a device that acted like one. It was basically a set of thick steel plates with retractable spikes that triggered when too much weight pressed on them, like the kind you see at car rental exits. Completely legal if it's on private property. And it was on my private driveway, just beneath the surface layer of cement bricks that I custom installed myself after a weekend of back-breaking labor. It only activated when a car stopped for more than 30 seconds. I tested it with my own truck. Harmless if you're quick, ruthless if you're stubborn. I even added a hidden camera just above my garage light, synced to a motion sensor, and set to upload directly to my cloud storage. It was perfect. And I waited. The trap is set. Karen didn't show for 3 whole days. It was almost suspicious. I began to think she'd finally gotten the message. Then, on a crisp Monday morning, just as the sun peeked over the roofs, I heard it. The crunch, the grinding, the screech of metal on metal, and Karen yelling, "What in the?" I grabbed my phone and tapped into the live feed. She had pulled halfway into my driveway, like always, probably planning to sit there for 10 minutes while her friend down the block got ready for carpool. But this time, the rear of her car had sunk just enough to activate the pressure trigger. 2 of the retractable metal spikes slammed upward and pierced straight through her back tire. Another spike hit her muffler. She was stuck. She slammed her car door open and stormed around to the back, crouching down to see the damage. And then she saw the camera. Her face changed from red-hot rage to pale, wide-eyed fear. Then bam, a sudden loud hiss as her front tire began deflating too. One of the pressure plates had shifted just slightly, reacting again. She stood up, wheeled around, and shouted, "You're going to jail for this." The red and blue lights flashed across my front yard like a disco gone wrong. Karen was still sprawled in the flower bed, clutching her ankle and shrieking like I'd unleashed a wild bear on her. She saw the police cruiser pull up and instantly turned up the drama. "Oh, thank God," she sobbed, pointing at my house. "That man tried to kill me." 2 officers stepped out. Officer Ramirez, the calm one with kind eyes, and Officer Doyle, the one who looked like he drank stress for breakfast. I opened the door before they could even knock. "Morning, officers," I said as calmly as I could, trying to pretend there wasn't a woman shrieking about attempted murder in my hydrangeas. Ramirez gave a slight nod. "Sir, we got a call about an injury?" "Yep," I replied, stepping aside and motioning to Karen, flailing like a fish out of water. "She stepped on my property again, and this time my new security system responded." "Security system?" Doyle raised a brow. "Yep," I repeated, then pointed up to the blinking red light on my house. "Everything's recorded." Karen didn't like that. "He trapped me," she screamed. "He put booby traps on his driveway. He's insane. He destroyed my car and now he's trying to maim me." Doyle looked at me. "Sir, we're going to need to take a look." I nodded and led them to the garage, where my laptop was open and already streaming the footage. I had every angle-wide shot, zoom, timestamps, audio, everything. We watched Karen roll up slowly, half of her SUV's rear sticking out into the road. She put the car in park. Then click. The spike popped. Tire shredded. We watched her get out. Cuss. March around. Then the second tire hissed. Then she stomped toward my door and stepped directly on the trigger plate. Then, boom heel punctured. Down she went. She wasn't even supposed to be on my property, I explained. I've documented over a dozen violations. I joined the HOA board just to stop this behavior. This was a last resort. Doyle narrowed his eyes. Ramirez leaned in. That plate, was it made for injury or just vehicle deterrence? It's weight triggered, I explained. Designed for cars, not people. It shouldn't have activated under her weight, unless she stomped it hard. Ramirez nodded slowly. She did stomp. Karen's spin. Outside, Karen was sitting upright now, ankle propped on her bumper, putting on a show for the neighbors gathering nearby. A small crowd had formed, mostly other homeowners. Some stared in confusion, some in curiosity, and some with the same quiet anger I'd been holding in for months. Karen noticed the police walking back toward her and quickly switched tones. "Officers," she said sweetly, as if her earlier banshee scream hadn't happened, "please tell me you're arresting him. That man is a danger to this entire community." Officer Doyle tilted his head. "Ma'am, we saw the footage. You parked illegally on private property." Again. She blinked. I wasn't parking. I was just waiting for a friend." Ramirez stepped forward. "And you walked onto his property after the first damage occurred, then triggered the second plate." "I stomped because I was angry," she snapped. "It's still his fault for putting murder weapons under the ground." Doyle held up a hand. "Let's be clear. These devices are legal on private property. They're car deterrents, not weapons. You trespassed after being warned multiple times. Your injuries are unfortunate but avoidable." Karen's jaw dropped. "You're not arresting him?" she squeaked. "No, ma'am," Ramirez replied, writing something in his notebook. "But we are filing an incident report, and we recommend you avoid stepping onto this property again." "But I'm Ho," she barked. "No," I said, stepping forward. "You're the secretary. I'm now on the board. And I have every parking violation logged, every call to towing companies recorded, and now a very nice bit of footage." Ramirez looked at me. "You planning to press charges?" I glanced at Karen. Her face was red, her hair a mess, her car leaking tire goo into my driveway. "No," I said, holding back a smile. "Not yet. Lowe's before another storm." The officers left after taking statements, and Karen limped back to her half-deflated SUV. Her friend down the street had to come help tow her away. For the first time in months, I had my driveway back. Neighbors began whispering. One even knocked on my door later that evening. It was Mr. Hopkins from across the street, was rarely involved in neighborhood gossip, but today he looked impressed. "Just wanted to say," he said with a chuckle, "about time someone stood up to her." "You've had issues too?" He laughed. "She fined me $200 for having whimsical bird feeders." I wasn't alone. In fact, over the next few days, I got quiet nods and thumbs up from folks I hadn't even spoken to before. Apparently, Karen had made a lot of enemies, but no one had dared push back. Until now. Still, I knew it wasn't over. Karen wasn't the type to take embarrassment well, and now that her car, pride, and power had all taken a hit, she'd come back swinging. The late-night knock. 3 nights later, just after midnight, I was brushing my teeth when I heard it. Tap, tap, tap. Not a fist. Not a knock. It was a fingernail. Sharp, deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. I crept to the front window and peered through the blinds. Nobody on the porch. Then my phone buzzed. Motion detected. Garage cam. I opened the feed and froze. It was Karen, dressed in all black, hoodie up, holding something shiny in her hand. A crowbar? She was staring straight at the camera. And then, slowly, she held up a sign. White cardboard. Big black letters. I warned you. She dropped it on the ground and disappeared into the darkness. The next morning, I walked outside and found the sign exactly where she'd left it. But it wasn't alone. A new scratch stretched across the hood of my truck. Long, deep, deliberate. I looked up at the camera footage and checked the timestamp. But there was nothing. The camera had cut out for 5 minutes. 5. Exactly the time it would have taken her to do it. Karen had learned. And now the war was back on. The next morning, my heart was pounding. Not from fear, from fury. I stared at the long scratch running across the hood of my pickup truck me pride and joy. A deep, ugly gash from the front bumper all the way to the back mirror. It didn't just hurt my truck. It hurt me. I checked the footage again, praying it was just a glitch. But the same thing happened every time. A 5-minute blackout. Right when Karen had shown up in the middle of the night, dressed like a low-budget ninja. This wasn't just a fight over parking anymore. She wanted revenge. But so did I. And this time, I wasn't just going to protect my property. I was going to expose her completely. Low before the storm. Planning the perfect setup. Over the next few days, I played it cool. I washed my truck, covered up the scratch with touch-up paint, and didn't say a word to the HOA. Karen thought she'd won the last round, but I was about to flip the game board on her. You see, I used to work in AV installation home security, motion detection, and, well, a few other fun tech hobbies. I'd been holding back before. Now, gloves off. First, I installed a decoy camera. Big, obvious fake one, with a blinking red light right above the garage. Then I moved the real camera to a hidden angle inside a birdhouse, facing the driveway and front yard. It had night vision, motion alerts, audio, and cloud backup. Then I rolled out my dummy truck. It was my old beat-up Chevy S10 that hadn't run in years. I parked it right in my driveway where my good truck used to be. I covered it with a fresh coat of paint and slapped on a brand new decal just like my main truck. To anyone passing by, it looked like the same one she'd scratched. And I parked it just barely over the line again. Just like she hated. And I waited. Hi, Karen takes the bait. It only took 3 nights. The motion sensor on my phone buzzed at exactly 2:17 a.m. I opened the hidden feed, and there she was. Karen, dressed in black again. Hoodie, gloves, backpack. She crept across the lawn like a raccoon that hated trucks. She paused once to look up at the fake blinking camera, smirked, then pulled out a small black object from her bag. A key. No, a knife. A box cutter. She started dragging it across the paint. Again. Slowly. Savoring it. Then she took out a small can spray paint. I zoomed in on the footage. She wrote 4 massive letters across the tailgate. Pigs. I couldn't believe it. She was tagging my truck like some teenage punk in an alley. I didn't stop her. Not yet. Because the real trap hadn't been sprung. Lo, the calm before the payback. The next morning, I waited. I didn't touch the truck. I left the scratch and the graffiti just as she left it. I wanted everyone to see it. And see it they did. By noon, at least a dozen neighbors had slowed down while driving past. Some even took photos. Mr. Hopkins from across the street stood there shaking his head. "That woman's lost it," he muttered. "Oh," I said, "you haven't seen anything yet." Because I was going to show everyone. But first, I needed one more thing. I took the footage over an hour's worth of crystal clear night vision film and edited it down into a highlight reel. Karen creeping. Karen scratching. Karen spray painting pigs. Karen smiling at the fake camera. I added timestamps, arrows, zoom-ins. I even slowed down the moment she smirked, to make her look like a cartoon villain. Then, I posted it anonymously to the neighborhood Facebook group. Title: Guess Who Hates Trucks? HOA member caught vandalizing property on camera. And within 20 minutes, the comments exploded. "Hi, Karen's world starts to crumble." "Is that Karen? Is this real?" "Wait, that's right in front of 142 Maple. She just vandalized his truck. What the heck?" Then the HOA president commented, "I'll be calling an emergency board meeting immediately." Followed by, "Karen has been temporarily suspended, pending investigation." And then, "We've contacted the police. We do not condone this behavior." I sat back, sipping my coffee like it was sweet tea on a summer afternoon. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Cliffhanger. Karen's desperation grows dangerous. That night, around 11:30 p.m., I heard the unmistakable screech of tires outside. I peeked out the window and saw Karen's SUV again. Only this time, she wasn't sneaking around. She was pacing in the street, frantic, talking to herself, holding her phone to her ear one second, screaming into it the next. Then she started storming toward my door. I bolted the locks and switched on the porch light. Bang, bang, bang. She was punching my door now. "Open this door! Open it right now!" she howled. I picked up my phone to call the police. Then, suddenly, silence. She vanished. For a moment, I thought she'd left. Until I heard the noise. Karen's SUV lights beamed into the space like a spotlight in a crime movie. The chain was taut. The metal bin screeched like it was screaming, and Karen's tires spun furiously. She was trying to yank the whole trap out of the ground. I stepped into view, phone in one hand, remote in the other. "You really want to play this game, Karen?" I said. She didn't answer. She just screamed like a banshee and hit the gas. Clunk. The metal bin slammed into the spike strip I'd hidden beneath it. And suddenly, boomfsht. A horrible sound exploded from beneath her tires. Karen had yanked her car straight over the shredder. Her two rear tires burst like party balloons at a porcupine party. Hiss, hiss. She slammed on the brakes, but it was too late. The SUV tilted as the back sagged on the blown tires. I walked up to the edge of the garage. Camera still rolling. "Hope you weren't planning to drive home tonight," I said calmly. Lo, Karen unravels. Karen jumped out of the car, furious. She didn't even look at the shredded tires. She marched straight up to me, face red, hands shaking. "You psycho," she screamed. "That's illegal. I'm calling the police." "You should," I said. "Let me help you with that." I dialed 911 and handed her the phone. Tell them everything. She looked confused. Then I showed her the screen. The live feed from the hidden birdhouse camera. There she was, spray painting my truck, scratching the door, dragging the metal bin, pulling a chain, right before running over the trap. Her face turned white. She threw the phone back at me. "This isn't over," she screeched. "You're going to jail." She stumbled back to her SUV and sat in it, Furihausen stuck. Because with 2 tires blown out and the metal chain still wrapped around her bumper, she wasn't going anywhere. Hi. The whole neighborhood watches. The next morning, the real show began. Karen's SUV was still in my driveway now, with 2 orange parking violation stickers from the HOA and 1 small note taped to the windshield. Evidence has been forwarded to local authorities. Do not remove vehicle until inspection is complete. Neighbors gathered like it was a garage sale. Phones out. Laughing. Talking. She finally snapped, someone whispered. "She's the one who said he was the unstable one," said another. Then came Mr. Hopkins, the HOA president. He looked at me, nodded once, and said, "Effective immediately. She's been removed from the board. But you might still want to lawyer up." "Already did," I replied. Lo, a new threat emerges. I figured Karen would lay low after being caught, but she didn't. Later that day, I got a letter in the mail. It was folded neatly. No return address. Just 1 sentence inside. "You've made a powerful enemy." There was no signature. No name. Just those words. And a tiny sticker in the cornering HOA logo. But not my HOA. It was from the regional board. The one above ours, which Karen used to have connections with. Cliffhanger. The trap worked, but the game's not over. That night, I reviewed the footage again frame by frame just to be safe. And that's when I saw it. Right before Karen backed up and ran over the trap. She whispered something to her phone. A single word. "Tonight." I rewound it. Zoomed in. Read her lips. Not help. Not sorry. Just tonight. As if someone else was in on it. Someone still out there. Someone who might come for me next.